Good morning, everyone. Darko? All right. Good morning, everyone listening to us from every part of the world where you are listening. This is MSI Nigeria Chat Series, where we talk about everything sexual and reproductive health, and we bring the conversations that interest you and interest every other person, especially those who are of sexual and reproductive age. You are welcome, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from across the globe. We have a very important conversation that we are going to be discussing today, and is around how whether or not men's sexual and reproductive health is a woman's business. Is men's sexual and reproductive health a woman's issue? And that's the conversation that we are going to be talking about today. Most often, different people have different ideas about the sexual and reproductive health of women, of men. But today, we have a lineup of experts, and we have a couple of people who have joined us on our various stream platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, depending on where you are watching us from. And we also have a good number of people who have joined us on Zoom call, who are also going to be participating in this conversation. So it's going to be a conversational discussion. So feel free, bring up your questions, bring up your comments, and bring up any issues that you feel like we want to discuss within this topic. Right, so before we kick off, my name is Chibuike Otaka, and I'm co-presenting today with Lillian Ogazi. But before we go to the first question, we would like to introduce our guests, and Lillian will help us to do that.
Thank you very much, Chibuike, for that lovely introduction there. Well, let's get to meet our guests who are going to champion this interesting conversation we'll be having this morning. Like we said, it's about men's health and the reproductive issue and how it affects women. And on our panel this morning, we have Elizabeth Adewale. She's a certified sex educator as a sexual and reproductive health influencer. Elizabeth is a holistic sex educator with over 5 years of experience advancing sexual and reproductive health, right? And she holds a master's of public health and has worked across health communication, community engagement, behavior change, communication, public education, and advocacy to improve access to evidence-based sexual health information. Now, Elizabeth's work focuses on empowering young people in Nigeria and beyond to make informed and confident decisions about their sexual and reproductive health through evidence-based education, storytelling, and honest conversation. Now, Elizabeth believes in creating a safe, non-judgmental, free space where people can access accurate information, challenge harmful myths, and engage with sexuality without shame or stigma. Thank you so much for creating our time from a busy schedule to join us on this chat series this morning, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, still on our panelists this morning, we have Eketi Edima-Ete. Eketi is the founder of Edima Consulting. Eketi Edima is a storyteller, an author, a TEDx speaker, writing coach, and founder of Kedima Consulting with over 15 years of experience in helping individuals, organizations, and leaders communicate with clarity and authenticity and impact. She's also a lawyer by training, and she has worked across storytelling, communication, leadership, development, and personal growth, where she uses stories to shape perspective and influence. Now, her work focuses on helping people identify culture, beliefs, relationship, and she's also a solid SRH advocate who uses her platform and her stories to advocate for sexual and reproductive health care for women. Eketi has been recognized as one of Nigeria's top 100 influential writers under 40. Thank you so much for creating our time to join us this morning, Eketi. It's a pleasure having you join this conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you. And we have our own Dr. Kingsley Odogu. Director, Clinical Services, MSI Nigeria. Dr. Kingsley Odogu is an obstetrician and a gynecologist with over 15 years of experience of public health, leading and implementing reproductive healthcare interventions across Nigeria's public sector and private sectors. Dr. Kingsley currently serves as Director of Clinical Services at MSI Nigeria Reproductive Choices, where he provides strategic leadership for clinical quality service delivery and quality improvement initiative. He also plays a pivotal role in the design and implementation of several reproductive health programs, particularly those focused on strengthening quality care. Now, Dr. Odogu has also contributed to the development of national reproductive health policies, guidelines, and technical documents in Nigeria. He is a skills trainer and service provider who is actively involved in building the capacity of healthcare professionals and expanding access to quality reproductive health services, including voluntary non-scalpel vasectomy. He holds a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, and a postgraduate degree in Public Administration from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Dr. Kingsley, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I believe our listeners have a lot to learn from you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydian, and happy to be here.
And finally, on our panelists, we have Dr. Maureen Uche Umekulu. She's the Chief Medical Director, Chukwuma Odumegu Ojukwu University Teaching Hospital, Amaku Oka, Anambra State. She's joining us all the way from Anambra State. Dr. Maureen is a consultant obstetrician, gynecologist, oncologist, and a healthcare leader with over 25 years of experience in clinical practice, medical education, research, and public health. She currently serves as the Chief Medical Director of Chukwuemeka Odumegu Ojukwu University Teaching Hospital, Amaku Oka. She is an internationally recognized expert in cervical cancer prevention, HPV vaccination, women's health, and health system strengthening. Dr. Maureen has led research, policy, and advocacy initiatives that have improved women's health outcome in Nigeria and other low and middle income countries. Her work continues to shape clinical practice, strengthen health system, and expand access to quality healthcare for women and families. Thank you so much, Dr. Maureen, for joining us this day for this beautiful and interesting conversation we're having. Thanks for creating our time to join us this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's great joining you in this wonderful conversation. Thank you.
So I'll hand over back to Chibike. Thank you so much, Chibike.
All right, thank you very much. So let's get right into the conversation. And my first question would be around what is it that women also look out for in their sexual and reproductive health that they also prioritize or would want their men to prioritize? And to answer this question, I will go first to Elizabeth Adewale, and then I'll come back to you, Eketi. Take it right off from there. Thank you. What is it that women, you as a woman, would look out for in your reproductive health, and you would want that to be prioritized by the men around you? Thank you.
Okay, so that's a really good question. So the first thing I would look out for is STI testing, prevention, and screening. Right? Because, so sexual reproductive health involves two people, right? It concerns more than one person, right? So I would personally, I'll be looking out for a man that also prioritizes getting tested, getting the HPV vaccine, getting the hepatitis B vaccine. I would also prioritize or look out for a man that's interested in contraception, not because most contraceptive methods are designed for women anyways, but condom use, even a man that's just interested in having the conversation about contraception is also very, very important for me as a person. So for me, when I'm looking out for in my own sexual reproductive health, I want a man to prioritize as well, would be STI testing, prevention, screenings, getting tested regularly, getting the appropriate vaccines, and also contraception conversations. Yeah, mutual responsibility, shared responsibility in that regard.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Eketi, what do you prioritize?
I think Elizabeth already answered, what I wanted to say, but I also wanted to add hygiene. I don't think that this is something that we talk about a lot when it comes to sexual health. A lot of men, right, do not think that hygiene is important when it comes to sexual health. And I believe that that is something that a lot of women prioritize for themselves, that they should look out for in their partners, that they should demand even, from their partners. Because if someone doesn't take care of, their body outwardly, chances are that they're not going to take care of their body inwardly. And so hygiene is very, very important as far as sexual health is concerned.
Thank you very much. Let me take this conversation to Dr. Kingsley Odogu. So when we talk about sexual and reproductive health, whether for men and for women, what does it actually entail when we talk about men's sexual and reproductive health? What does it mean in a layman's understanding?
Thank you, Chibuike, for that question. It's men's sexual health beyond just talking about ability to perform or reproduce. It's commonplace for people to forget that it's essentially a whole body concept. I will want to just come from a simple thing, whereby WHO has given us a guidance that a complete physical, emotional, and social well-being, okay, as it relates to sexuality. And that is what sexual health is all about. But it's a common misgive by individuals to just think that this just simply, men are commonly profiled by their ability to get women pregnant or reproduce or have erection, but it's really beyond that. And I want to draw the aspect of looking at the entire being, health of a man, both physical, emotional, and social well-being. Thank you.
So you said it's beyond that. So what is it actually? So beyond that, so what is it? Can you break it down for us? What are those specific things that would, make up the men's sexual and reproductive health?
Yes. So I can go further to talk on this, because there are different components that really define the sexual health of a man. First of all, when you look at the hormones, the hormonal balance, that hormone that controls the sexuality of a man, that's the testosterone. It's the hormone that is responsible for both achieving libido, mood, as well as the entire energy that men boast about most of the time. The hormone is very, very important. And when you look very deeply, if there is a problem with that hormone, a lot could go wrong. So the hormones balance is very, very, very important, the hormonal balance. Again, if you go deeper again and you look at how this relates, the entire sexuality of a man is dependent on the cardiovascular as well as the metabolic status. And blood has to flow, the heart has to be strong, and the state of the cardiovascular and the metabolic system is also a function of the sexuality. It plays a very important function. Again, we can go on and on. The state of the mind, the mental and the emotional well-being of that person. The process of sexuality has a lot to do with the state of the mind. And that's why when stress, anxiety, depression, they have a whole lot to do around the way it interplays with health. And then what you eat, nutrition, okay? Your lifestyle. When we talk about alcohol consumption, we talk about smoking, okay? We talk about, adequate balanced diet that has essential minerals. These are also very, very important because they play a very vital role when you look at the sexuality of a man. And then we can go on and on to talk about the relationship issues around, and also some other social factors generally. Now, it is also critical that in every relationship, you need to build trust, okay? You need to talk about safety concerns. You need to talk about communication, partner communication.
Sure.
It is very, very important because the entire satisfaction is gained through this. And then again, it must be devoid of coercion, violence, and also discrimination. So it is a whole body concept that looks at both physical, emotional, and the social well-being, as it relates to sexuality, and not necessarily the ability to perform.
Ability, all right. Thank you so much, Dr. K, for that breakdown. Well, we have our poll questions streaming up, so do well to respond to them and we'll pick your reactions. And also, we're still trying to understand, what does men's sexual health mean beyond performance? Is it just about performance, or is it beyond performance? So at this point, the chat box is open. Do well to drop in your responses and your contributions. And also across our social media platforms, we're looking forward to getting your reactions. It's a shared conversation and we really want to hear from everybody because we want everyone's input in this. So if you are watching us on Instagram or on YouTube, this is MSI chat series. So if you're watching us on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook, do well to drop in your questions in the comment section and we'll pick them up, and also your responses to the questions. For those of us who are streaming here on Zoom, we have the poll and it's going to come up, so do well to respond as well. Thank you so much. So over to you, Dr. Morin. Let's take your response based off what Dr. K has said when it comes to men and their sexual health. There's this notion that says it's relating just to performance. What's your take on that? Let's have a feel of, how you weigh everything he has said so far. Okay, Dr. Morin, your audio is muted.
Thanks so much, Lillian, and everybody on board. It's unfortunate my system is giving me more issues, so we're trying to connect with another one if you could allow us.
It's fine, go ahead.
The question you asked, yes, we're trying to connect. Maybe they kept on saying it's not allowed.
No, go ahead, we can hear you very well.
Yes.
We can hear you well.
Then coming to what we are talking about, and even what Dr. Kingsley said, men's sexual reproductive health is not only about performance. It's a holistic factor. Like Dr. Kingsley mentioned, using the World Health Organization definition about wellness. If we are looking at male reproductive health, it is holistic. We are talking about men's health. We are also looking at those factors in a man's health that will affect the woman directly and indirectly. And I will tell you that when we talk of men's reproductive health, there are lots that can affect a woman directly. So it's not only about performance. When we're talking of those factors like sexually transmitted infections, that can move from a man to a man. So, for example, sorry, going to migrate. Yeah, I think I can off this. Yeah. Sorry, please, I'm going to migrate now. Okay, yeah. So we are. I'm not seeing myself.
Go ahead. We can see you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I will connect back this.
Go ahead, speak, please.
Go ahead.
First-hand experience about the factors of a man's reproductive aspect with this that can affect a woman. So it has to be holistic. We are talking of sexually transmitted infections that that a man, most of them are asymptomatic. They feel that okay, but they will innocently or unknowingly, because like I say, it's not intentional, because they're not symptomatic, but they can unknowingly transfer that to a woman. Take, for instance, when we're talking about sexually transmitted diseases like HIV, HPV, gonorrhea, chlamydia, these are the things that a man can transfer to a woman unknowingly, I have to say, that will affect the woman adversely to her health. You know, in a summarized way, if we start from sexually transmitted diseases, we move to pelvic infection, we move to affectation of a woman's tubes, we move to infertility, we move to chronic infections, and we like that. And we want to pick HIV, it moves to the woman and the effect of HIV. I hope you know that HPV that we're talking about in cervical cancer moves still for a man to a woman, that we still move over to cervical cancers. There are a whole lot of it. I feel we're still beginning, because there are a whole lot of things to talk in a man's health that will affect a woman's health.
Indeed.
It's not only about ejaculation, and even the general health of a man. I hope you know the general health of a man, the mental health, the physical health. Is like 2 days ago, a newly diagnosed young man with diabetes. He said, I need to go. But that single being a diabetic patient, we move the same man to having issue with erection. The issue of careless living, smoking, and all that, long distance journey person can affect the sperm quality of the same man we are talking about. The mental health of men is also another big factor in reproductive health, because it is the mental health of a man that will help him to support a woman. It's also when the mental health is not stable that the same man will be involved in abusive relationship, will now affect the woman adversely. So I think we're just starting the discussion, because I will tell you there's a lot in men's health that we need to discuss, because if we must get a woman's health right, we must look at the man's health. Even now, we are crying of maternal mortality. We are looking at men's health, their view to family planning. Like the initial, I think Elizabeth mentioned it. We are looking at what's their view towards family planning. When a man is not supportive of family planning, you will notice that that woman will find it difficult to keep her family planning methods that she's supposed to do. What will be the effect? Unwanted pregnancy, abortion, mortality. So there's a lot to talk. Please, I would like
to... Thank you very much, Dr. Morin. We are going to come back to you in a bit. And you've raised some very interesting questions as to, in fact, knowledge. And I want to take this up with Elizabeth and Eketi. So Eketi, do you think that men actually understand the implications or how the relationship, the interconnectedness of their reproductive well-being and that of the family and that of the women around them? Do you think most men have this understanding?
Sorry, could you please, come again? I got the thing cut on the way.
Dr. Morin, we are going to come back to you in a bit.
Okay.
My next question is to Eketi and Elizabeth. And I want to find out if they believe that enough men or a lot of men understand the interconnectedness of their sexual and reproductive health well-being and that of the family and that of their the women around them, whether their wife or their spouses or those they are in relationship with. Eketi, take it up.
Okay, so I'll come from the angle of a storyteller to answer this question. And I will say that I don't think that many men understand the connectivity or how intertwined their sexual health is with that of the women that they are either in relationships with or have sexual congress with. And the reason I'll say this is that long before boys or long before men receive sex education, they receive stories. And they're told, they grow up, they're in these secondary schools, they're in these families, they are listening to their friends, they are listening to their older brothers, they are listening to their older cousins, they are listening to their uncles, and some of them are listening to their fathers. And they hear the stories like, oh, a real man is a man who has several girlfriends. There are men who grew up to admire their uncles, to admire their older brothers, to admire their cousins who had several girlfriends. And for them, the definition of who a man was a man who could hold.
I'm going to check the
Sorry.
Sorry, please. Could you hold your mic on mute? Go ahead, please, Eketi.
Okay. So their definition of who a man was someone, a man who could hold the attention of several women. And then some of them learned from these older men and, role models that a real man was a man who had a strong pull-out game. And that meant, oh, this man cannot, he's so good at it, he's so fast and he's so sharp that he has been, he has dodged the consequence of impregnating the women he's sleeping with. And what they learned from those stories that those men told them was that it was okay for you to have several sexual partners and not use protection, because protection showed that you were not a sharp guy or a fast guy. It was doing raw that defined you as a man. Some of them grew up hearing the stories from this older cousins and this older model. I'm just going to call them role models, from their role models and from their classmates, how they avoided, the responsibility of fathering, of being or parenting children from these girls and these women that they had impregnated. So they were like, oh, boys would tell you gist of, oh, how this babe that I used to do something with came with her mother or with her father with a pregnancy, and I was able to dodge it, blah, blah, blah. So these are the stories that these men grew up hearing. They grew up hearing that, oh, as a man, why are you going to the hospital? Just drink water. Just, there was this running joke in my area, then it was like, just lick pepper and you'll be okay. So men grow up with the stories. And these stories become behavior. And then behavior becomes, how would I call it? It becomes public health. Because when a man learns these things, right, it is what determines what he does. And so the determinant of what he does is what has been communicated to him. And this conversation is important because communication is what shapes beliefs. Beliefs is what shapes culture. Peer pressure is what shapes behavior. So a lot of men do not understand how important it is for them to take care of their bodies so that they can in turn give good output to their partners, just as their partners are giving them good output. For instance, there is this conversation that happened recently on Twitter where they were talking about how often men change their boxers. And there were a lot of responses that were, Chibuike, I'm sure you were aware of that conversation. It was crazy. There were a lot of men who were saying that, how can you wear one boxer per day? You should wear one boxer at least maybe until a week, and then you change it. A week. Some people were saying, how can you wash up yourself after going to do number 2, right? Well, we're adults here, so I'm just going to say the toilet. How can you go to the toilet and do number 2 and then wash up? That's ill. That's so girly, or that's so gay. Real men don't wash up. Real men don't wipe. Some people say real men don't wipe. Some people say real men only use tissue paper. These are and there are some people who were in those conversations and they're going, Oh my God, this is so disgusting. How can somebody say this? How can an adult man say this? But these are the stories that adult men grew up with that shaped their beliefs. These are the stories that built pressure in them. These are the stories that now dictate their behaviors. So if a boy grows up and the first thing he hears from his father before, and I'm saying this is a real story, the first thing he hears from his father before his father can say, do not have sex if you're not ready for the responsibility, is his father calling him at 13 for a meeting and saying, if you ever impregnate a girl, bring her home. If you want to know how not to impregnate a girl, sharpen your pull-out game. A teenager is hearing that from a father. What kind of man is he going to grow up to become? He's going to grow up to become a man who does not take his sexual health seriously. And so when he becomes that man, he does not understand the impact of his sexual health. Do you understand? So he's drinking, he's smoking, he's not eating right. He does not understand the impact of those things on his body and eventually on the woman and the offspring that they will have. So yes, a lot of men do not understand that connection because of the stories that have shaped their behavior.
All right, thank you very much, Eketi. I would say that you did not just break the table, you broke the table and you carried it out of the group chat. But thank you for, clearing that up. I saw Dr. K's reaction throughout the conversation and I can't wait to bring him in on this. But before we get to you, Dr. K, I want to come to you, Elizabeth. Now, Eketi has said a lot of things about the mindset of men and how society has shaped them. You are actively on social media, championing sex education and talking to men and women alongside. What's your take on what she just said? Would you agree with it? Do you have a different opinion? And then we'll let the man in the room respond to this and see how it all plays out. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Okay, yes, I fully agreed with Eketi. You see, I was shaking my head, like I was nodding as she was saying everything she said, because I'm on social media, I'm very active on Twitter, and I see the conversations that happen, right? Most men don't understand the interplay. They don't know the connection. Most of them focus on sexual performance. Even as a sex educator, most of when men come to me to ask questions, they're asking about how can I last long in bed, or how can I get my erections to be stronger, or my erections are not as strong as they used to be. How can I satisfy my woman? They don't ask questions about their sexual health. Most times when a man meets a woman, he's asking about her body counts. He's not asking, when last did you get tested? Are you STI free? Have you gotten your vaccines? No, he's asking, what is your body count? In fact, most men, they don't even really care. They don't care about their sexual health, and it goes back to our gender socialization and culture and social norms. Men are socialized to participate in sex. Right, we teach young boys, about sexual performance. That's what we teach them about. We don't teach them about sexual health. We don't teach them that even though you don't have symptoms as a man, you can still have an STI and pass it on to your woman. And then some men will be like, oh, she has a fishy smell. But they don't even know that men can silently carry the bacteria that causes bacterial. They can silently carry the bacteria that contributes to bacterial vaginosis. So men can also contribute to women's health, to women's hygiene, to women's reproductive health, but they don't know. They are so focused on their sexual performance. And it is all due to, like Eketi has said, so it's all because of culture, the way they are brought up in families, even their peers, what they see on social media, what they hear in school. So what they hear on social media, I believe social media plays a very, really big role, because when families don't provide comprehensive sex education, when schools don't teach comprehensive sex education, young boys turn to social media, they turn to porn, they turn to their peers, and the internet is filled with so much misinformation. Yeah, so I agree so much.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. Dr. K, they seem to have roped men into this conversation a lot more. It's cool, we have you. We hope Chibike can defend you, but it's fine. We'll have you take the heat alone. Chibike, feel free to chip in and defend your gender. Feel free to chip in and defend your gender, because
it's the boxer part for me.
Yes. I think the wiping part also got me. Now, there was this video that came out yesterday, and it asked women to share the most unhygienic part of a man that they've seen, and someone literally confirmed that her deal breaker in the relationship was her fiancé standing up and not wiping and saying, oh, he's not done, he has other things to do around the house. So that's still, when Eketi mentioned it, I remember that video and I saw a lot of people commenting on it. So let's rope you in, Dr. K. They've said a lot of things about upbringing of men and how they are being taught more of performance than hygiene. What's your take on that? And where did you think we missed it? And how can this all be put together? Let's hear your opinion on these accusations.
And I'm basically asking, just to add, so is there anything medically or socially or culturally that basically promotes the unawareness of men about their sexual and reproductive health?
Thanks, Chibuike. Thanks, Lillian. Really interesting conversation. Thanks, Eketi did. I loved her conversation. A lot she said around the masculine norms and stigma that drive us to look like everyone is just fixated on sexual performance, forgetting sexual health. That's where it all starts from. Culturally, there's a lot of factors that actually resonates and is responsible for this. In most cultural settings, including the place I come from, there is this talk about real men and the fact that sexuality issues and problems are a taboo in some places. They cannot say it. They can't come out and say, I have a problem with erection. That would be the end of some persons in some cultural settings. In fact, they will just say they can send them out of that village. And everybody will go about talking about that same person as if, meanwhile, there are way over hundreds with the same problem, but are just, manning up and pretending it does not exist. So these norms, I'll call them the stigma, is key to why there is emphasis on sexual performance rather than sexual health. And that's where we are missing, and that's where the whole problem starts from. Why do you think aphrodisiacs are selling like wildfire, for instance? There was a company that opened up in Lagos. My friend was one of the lead marketers. Overnight, they sold what he targeted to sell in 6 months. He sold it in over a weekend. Who is consuming? Why? And there are the problems with these things, with the use of these aphrodisiacs. We cannot finish it. We cannot exhaust it if we were to go into that. So yes, masculine norms, stigma, sexual issues being a taboo, and again, the fact that it make men look less. These are problems. Again, I can also go ahead and talk about the fear of judgment and loss of status, which is another problem some persons will face, even with your spouse, especially when they let them know they have a problem. Some begin to look elsewhere, straight up, without even asking what exactly is the real issues. And can we go and see someone? No. Immediately they begin to look elsewhere. And it is a problem, and that's why some men will just belt up and would rather not say. And then the problem continues, and it gets worse over time. There again, if you again look at global SRH policies, especially in those days we used to do, I used to run a gynae clinic in the teaching hospital. I recall something I noted and I had to flag at a point. Most cases of infertility investigation is focused just on the women. It's only when we have exhausted the fact that the problem is not from the woman, then we begin to look at, the man. And in some cases, it's like the man has an option to decline being investigated. The man has the flexibility of not, but the woman is so by default, it's already a woman's problem and not the man's problem. And it took a lot of, a lot of energy to begin to make them interventions and so on to make them come. There are even instances where I requested that the man comes. The man said he has never been to the hospital. He will never come to the hospital, and he will not come to the hospital if that is the last thing he has to do. And that's how he has 4 wives, and some of them are pregnant, or some of them are not pregnant. Funny things were happening. So again, our limited access, generally our policies are a little skewed, women focused somehow, and not looking at the men. And then we also have the cultural and social barriers, where shame, I've talked about moral judgment, personal values. People feel that they are not, that everyone is normal except me. Face value. You just feel I'm the only one with this problem. I see I've seen quite a lot of amazing things in persons at the age of 40 and above. Someone has an undescended testis. Just when we got closer, he now opened up to me and was telling me this at the age of 40. Wow. I mean, the testis did not descend. It was undescended from the dates he was giving birth to. But he hid it. He hid it. And until it started giving him problems. And so many other issues related to this. And these have huge impact. So it's just majorly cultural, but it's also our systems, our the way we also look at them, and also some personal understanding, access to information is part of what is responsible for some of this. Let me stop here. Over.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. K. I would say you did a good job in trying to help the gender, but let's just say Chibike is refusing to be on your table for now, so we accept him to our agenda. Moving on. All right, we have a couple of questions and comments, but we'll take the comments first, and then we'll have the questions roll up on the slide, and we'll have everyone respond to it. As Dr. Maureen would love to rope you in here to respond to the questions. But we have someone, Khalifa Umar Bashir says, many interventions focus on increasing men's awareness, but awareness alone does not always lead to behavior change. So based on your experience, what evidence-based strategies have been most effective in moving men from simply knowing about sexual and reproductive health to actively seeking services supporting shared decision-making with their partners? Dr. Maureen would allow you take the lead on this, but I think I would want to take all the questions and then we'll chip in where necessary, and chip in where necessary. Now, the next question, this is from Gloria Yechain Dauda. She says, does occupations affect men's reproductive health? The kind of job you do, does it play an impact on your reproductive health? Let's go to Matthew Abba. He says, does men's sexual health depend on women? Depend on women because the conversation tends to center on prevention when it comes to sex with women. However, thank you, Elizabeth, for your wide approach towards the discussion. So, do I take that question again? Does men's sexual health depend on women because the conversation tends to center on prevention when it comes to sex to women? That is from Matthew. And then the next question we have is, do you recommend testosterone replacement therapy for increasing testosterone levels in men for better sexual and reproductive health? And
that would be to Dr. K.
Dr. K. Okay, so Dr. K, we hope you took that down. And Taiwo says, who should train the male child on sexuality, sexual health, personal hygiene, puberty, and contraception? This brings us to shared responsibility, and we'll respond to that. We'll take a pause on the questions and let's get to Dr. Maureen. Dr. Maureen, are you here?
Please take the first question.
Oh, yes, I'm here. Only that my video has refused to work. Okay.
It's fine.
We like your voice.
It's technology.
Yeah, yes. The first one, good, is quite interesting. I have to admit that occasionally we tend to focus more on women. We tend to forget the men. So what we are doing, apart from awareness, there must be, in fact, that we're supposed to bring them up, to be involved, let them be at the table. I know because of much talk about women and under 5, we tend to forget them. I think any opportunity while planning policies, men must be considered. I had an experience on Monday, but even though it's still ongoing, my state governor, His Excellency, marked his 66th birthday, and the wife will mark on Friday. And I assumed my position newly, and they told me they normally do newspaper publication, radio, and all that. And I looked at the bill brought on my table, and I felt we can use this to screen. So what I did, that I stopped the plan broadcasting from my own institution, and we made it, we now threw up free screening. Of course, we always remember cervical cancer and breast. It was a day to that I now remembered, what of men? We are celebrating a man. You know, I have to now add free PSA screening. And my dad, you know what happened on Monday? We had heavy downpour. The men came before the women. It's still ongoing now. And that showed me that the men, it's not that they're not coming, but occasionally we tend to forget them. So apart from awareness, we must bring them up. We must establish some interventions that will involve the men. We also have to encourage even our women, let's say during antenatal, let them endeavor to come with their men. That will bring them closer to the hospital, and they will get their own health checks. We must have a way of bringing men to know that even if it's once in a year, you can come into the hospital and check your health status. So we need to bring up proactive measures, even especially on policy tables, to bring men on board. I think 3 years ago, I was doing a study on violence against women. And I went to one clinic. A man was bold enough to ask me, what of men? Don't you people don't even know that we are also going through various abuses. And I decided to refund my questionnaire. And the result I got from them was, it was mind-blowing. So I think we have to remember, as doctors, as policymakers, stakeholders, bloggers, to remember to bring men's health, to talk about them, and all measures that will help them. Coming to the second question, when I gave my summary statement, I mentioned them. There are obvious occupations that will affect a man's health. The aspect of long-distance driving is well known. Even I know when we were much younger, even in secondary school, trailer drivers, because they sit for a long time and it will affect their semen analysis. However, we have to now know, with a lot of industrialization, some men are getting contact with chemicals that will affect their fertility level. And somebody mentioned, our men are also a bit careless about their health. They will have signs of infection. Some will not go because it's subtle. Some will just get 1 dose of ampiclox and just take it like that. So all these things are things affecting a man's health. And still on occupational aspect dimension, people also have to be mindful of race. Well, reports are beginning to show that there is increasing rate of poor semen analysis among our men. You see men with 3 phones, they will put it in their deep pocket, which is filled this thing away from their scrotum. And remember, spermatogenesis is going on continuously. It doesn't stop. Now you are using race to express this your engine house as a man, and the poor spermatogenesis are battling. with the rays of phones, exposing them to the rays of laptop. Men are used to keeping it on their lap without knowing we're talking of rays. So there are a lot of occupational hazard that will affect a man's fertility. And finally, the question I'm seeing, the other one you read, I didn't see, but the one I'm seeing again is, does men's sexual health depends on women? It's important. Even I'm doing my opening statement, I mentioned a lot of things that we move from a man to a woman. But we have to admit that some can actually move from a woman to a man. The issue of sexually transmitted diseases can actually move from a woman to a man. So it mustn't be the other way around. So we have other factors that affect men from women. The sexually transmitted diseases, the other things, even most of what we are saying, the HPV that will lead to cervical cancer, we have to remember that somebody is a reservoir. It can even be a man and a woman. That's why in clinic, we encourage women to always bring their husbands around, because if you treat only one person, the reservoir is in the other side waiting for reinfection. So you see some women presenting, we call them recurrent infection, because you will treat her, and after the treatment, she goes home to the house again or to the partner, and she picks up another one. So I feel that when we talk of reproductive health, we should talk of it in a holistic manner, not only male or female, but both of them supposed to be seen and handled together and holistically. Thanks, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Maureen. That's a very elaborate explanation there. And for the men who are listening, you've heard, pack all your phones in your pockets and all that to your detriment. Put your laptop on top of your laps. But it's called laptop, actually. So at what point are we removing the laptop from the lap now? I don't know. Maybe Dr. K will tell us. But Dr. K, there's one aspect of the first question that I want to bring back to you that says that we always dwell on awareness, talking to the men about these things. But at what point are we moving these men from just awareness to actively taking part? That's the second leg of Khalifa's question. So at what point are we moving them to actively taking steps to pay attention to their reproductive health? What are we doing in that aspect? Before we now take the last question, on the comments. Thank you.
So thanks for that. So a lot I can say from my experience in practice has really evolved over time. Some of the things that we had started doing these days is always encouraging. First of all, we had started mandating that when a woman presents with a complaint around fertility issues, you ask for her consent if it is possible to come together with, come with her partner. And we are gradually getting the whole approach a little bit non-skewed, and then involving the men more. And even for me, the first thing is irrespective, the easiest thing to do is a seminal fluid analysis, which is the easiest thing to do. Now, that is a lot on its own, because from providing seminal fluid, that means the man can actually ejaculate and then can produce, and then you can analyze. That's the fastest thing to do, even before you begin to dive there. So a lot has been done into the investigation approach into all these issues by involving the men, aside all the awareness, again, the approach down, documents, policies, guidelines, have also made it very, very clear that we used to think that infertility, for instance, I always use this example, it's a woman thing, until lately we started seeing that it's almost a 50-50 thing. as well as it is for men, it is also for women. We used to think when in medical school those days, it used to be something like 70-30, and erroneous because we did not have evidence, because there was no facts to buttress the fact. So most investigations or researches were focused on women, and that's why that percentage was skewed. But now we had evidence, overwhelming evidence, that as many as you have for women also exist for men. So treatment protocols, strategies, investigations, approaches have involved men significantly in the process, and that is increasing by the day. Aside all the public awareness about couples, partners taking responsibility for their health, persons also being responsible for their sexual health, all those awareness will also add to this. But even operationally, we are refocusing more on men, even at service delivery points, to be able to. Contraception, for instance, was never a man's thing, but as I speak, I'm a male vasection. I do vasectomies for men, and it will be surprising for some persons. They never knew that such existed. It was a theoretical thing. They don't even know it exists. And it's also a form of enhancing sexual health in men that have do not want to have for their children. And again, it has no impact on their performance, against the misbelief that it will affect erection and sexual performance. And just because of that singular fact, we have a huge deviation from people even wanting to opt for it generally. So yeah, that's what I would say. As per whether testosterone replacement, is it that the testosterone, right? If I'm
yes.
trying to,
The
yes. Second question is around getting testosterone as a replacement.
As a replacement, yes, that would help with sexual performance.
Testosterone. So there's something it's a sensitive, that's a very sensitive issue. There is endogenous, that's testosterone that is developed, that is endogenous, that is generated by the body, that is exogenous, that is produced from outside. They do the same function, but the endogenous testosterone is more, has better effect, in the sense that the body produces it and is able to serve the needed function. Now, as much as possible, many things could affect the testosterone level in the body, and whatever it is, be it a medical condition, diabetes, cardiovascular, whatever it is, needs to be treated so that we boost endogenous production of testosterone rather than giving it from outside, exogenous, because you will not be addressing the root cause, and then you will be suppressing the natural, on a long run, the endogenous production is more sustainable as against the exogenous. So please, I will discourage the use of, it has its place in clinical practice, but there are indications. There are conditions that must be met before they can be used for that purpose. So we should only use it when a clinician prescribes it after undergoing all the baseline investigations and notice that you merit to use it. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. K, for the prompt response to those questions. We still have a lot more questions, but if you are just, okay, we'll take Elizabeth, but shortly after this, if you're just joining us, this is MSI Nigeria's chat series, and our conversation is centered on men's health. We're asking, is men's sexual health a woman's issue? And we have our panelists, Elizabeth Adewale, we have Dr. Maureen, We have our co-anchor, Chibike Utaka, we have Eketi, and we have Dr. Kingsley Odogu. They've shared very important and, you know, interesting conversations today that have guided a lot of conversations and raised a lot of questions. Now we're streaming across all our social media platforms, which is Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And we're going to be taking a couple of questions from there right after Elizabeth speaks. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Let's hear your thoughts, and then we'll go to taking more questions from our audience.
Okay, so I want to quickly add to the first question, right? By moving from awareness to actually behavioral change, I think that we are missing the influence of social media, right? Maybe because I'm very active on social media and I use social media platforms to educate people. I think that young people listen to young people, men will listen to more men. So if we have more male role models, more male content creators that are creating content, educating men about these things, I think young boys and men will listen and take action. For example, now I did a video talking about going to get the HPV vaccine, the hepatitis B vaccine, and you know, so many men were in my comments like, oh, is this for men too? Is it only for women? They didn't even know that the hepatitis B vaccine was for men too. Imagine if there was a male content creator that did the same video I did, going to get the hepatitis B vaccine, more men will say that, okay, this is for men too. I think that, you know, social media it has a lot of opportunities. As much as there's risk in social media, there's opportunity too. So I think we need more male educators, more male content creators, role models, you know, peer educators, you know, doing the work. I think it will help a lot to move young boys and young men from awareness to actually behavioral change. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Elizabeth. And that is the conversation we've had severally around us here, talking about we need a lot more male advocates who are going to put out these conversations from the perspective of a man. That way, maybe we would have men interact a lot more with it and get more information from men. So let's take the questions now as they pop up on the screen at the moment. All right, so let's take the first question we have. The first question we have here, which is on the webinar chat while we're loading up the ones from our social media pages. This is from Matilda Mekanu, who says, from a public health perspective, what practical steps can couples take together to ensure that both partners prioritize sexual and reproductive health for the benefit of the entire family and the society at large? So I think we would have Elizabeth Eketi quickly respond to that, because we're looking at now the society and family and their attitude towards sexual and reproductive health. So let's have Elizabeth respond to that, and then we'll go, Eketi respond to that, and then we'll go to the next question. Eketi, the floor is yours. Let's hear your thoughts.
Okay, what measures can they take? So I'm not sure that the measures that are available are strictly for the couple alone, because the couples don't exist in a vacuum, right? They exist in a society, and if a society pushes a certain narrative, couples will become the victims of those narratives, whether they like it or not. So I would start, you know, from the society inwards. Behavior rarely changes through information or acquisition of information, because it's not that people don't know what to do. They already know what to do. It's what they believe, right? And so if a man believes, you know, that even you know, what a man believes or what a woman believes, you know, basically what people believe is what will determine how they have conversations. And so, for instance, most people in this part of the world believe that anything that has to do with health stops at the hospital, but it doesn't stop at the hospital. Conversations continue outside the hospital, and that's how it becomes effective. I'll give you an instance, right? Conversations that build culture are mostly established through the stories that we tell in the society that we live in, right? And so those conversations are mostly pushed through the media. I like what Elizabeth said about social media. It's such a huge influence on how people see and view things and how they build their culture, because media is what tells people who they become, right? In the old days, it was word of mouth media. That's what dictated how people became, or what people became. Today, we have it on the TV, on radio. I'll give you an instance. There's a time where something interesting happened in the media space. While NAFDAC was busy having conversations and pushing conversations about people not self-medicating, about people not self-diagnosing and taking medication, do you know that at the same time that was happening, pharmaceutical companies were having adverts on TV that subconsciously encouraged self-medication? And it was interesting to note that the key people in those adverts were men. So a man comes back from work. I'm sure some of us saw this adverts for malaria and for headache. A man comes back from work, he's touching his head. His wife comes and says, honey, what is wrong? And he's like, my head has been aching since morning. I'm feeling feverish. I don't know what to do. And then he goes on the couch and he lies down. And his wife has a light bulb moment where she says, I don't want to call any particular malaria medication now. So let me just look for something. Superior Agbo tablets are good for this thing. And then there is a voiceover that says, oh, Superior Agbo tablets are very good for malaria, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing, she's taking out 2 tablets and she's putting it in this man's hand. And the man swallows it. And then 30 minutes later, malaria Agbo, excellence for malaria. No tests. The media didn't show these people going for tests because fever and headaches could be an indication of 20 different diseases or illnesses. But this man didn't do any test. His wife just has a light bulb moment, puts medication in his hand. And so there was conflicting messaging from the media. One saying, don't self-medicate. The other saying, self-medicate, right? So the media is what builds custom and builds belief. And when you tell a man, oh no, you're feeling this thing, take it. When you tell a man that his power, his essence as a person lies in his penis. Like, men are so sensitive about their penis. It's crazy how sensitive, like it's tied down there. You're asking a man to come so that they can take a semen sample, and he's like, what? I can never do that. How is it supposed to happen? And you are explaining how these semen samples can be collected. And he's like, oh, no. That demeans me as a man. Like, all his power is there. And so what a man believes determines what conversations are going to happen in his home. Because especially here, where largely men hold the power of these conversations, it determines what contraception his wife, and I'm not talking about him because we know he's not going to use contraception. It determines what contraception his wife is going to use, or if she's even going to use contraception at all. His belief determines whether the pregnancy is going to be supported. His belief determines whether healthcare is going to be sought. And so if we're going to do this thing, it's not going to be just a couple thing. It's going to be a societal thing. A lot of men don't care about their health, not because they necessarily don't care about their women's sexual health, but also because society has taught men that seeking help is weakness. Like when Dr. K spoke earlier, he talked about a man who was 40 and had an undescended testicle and did not seek any help about it, because one of the stories he grew up learning or hearing and believing is that if he seeks help, as far as his reproductive organ is concerned, he's a weak person. And so we need to change that narrative so that couples can have good conversations. And it's important for us to have these conversations, not necessarily in the relationship, but before the relationship. And that's where a lot of people miss it. I've had men say to me that they looked at a woman and she looked clean, so they had unprotected sex with the woman. I'm like, what does she looks clean? What does it mean? How can you determine? Because we had an entire generation that grew up on HIV no dey show for face. And it was very impactful because a lot of people got tested because of those media messages that said HIV no dey show for face. And then you transitioned from that generation to a generation that is telling you that they looked at someone and they determined that the person was clean, and they went ahead and had unprotected sex with a stranger. So couples need to be careful what messaging they're receiving from society. If you can, as a couple, filter out the messaging that you're receiving from society currently, then you can proceed to have this conversation. And this conversation doesn't have to come from an adversarial point of view, which is what some women, when women are approaching conversations about health with their partners, a lot of times it comes across as an adversarial thing. As
all right. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much, Eketi. We have a lot of questions, but you have raised some crucial points, especially when it comes to conversation about sex, about family planning, and how men usually take the lead, and also conversations about, shaming. I had a conversation with someone a few days back, and, we're talking about how men do get raped too. Men do face forced intimacy, and most of them rarely speak about it because of the pride men have, saying they should be the one to initiate sexual advances and not women. So they cannot go and tell the police that they were raped, otherwise they'll be laughed at. So society has played a lot of role in that. But let's now take a couple of questions from our social media platforms. So to those who are on our social media platforms, we've seen you and now we're taking your questions. The first question we have here is, how do we get more male doctors to include men's testing and health concerns in policies and programs? I think it's somewhat unrealistic to expect female doctors to consistently include men's health concern in their regular medical routine. This is important because men are more likely to listen to another man concerning their health. We'll throw this question to Dr. Maureen, but let's go on to the next question. We'll have everybody. I can see Dr. K is having a couple of reactions around this. So we'll throw these questions around, but let's have the next question and then we'll take everything at the same time. So let's have the next question. It says, when should couples seek medical advice if they're experiencing difficulties with sexual intercourse or problems? I'm moving on to the next question now. This is, okay, we've taken this. This is from Dr. Matilda Saru, which we had everyone respond to. Now, this is, what are the key tests to run with a man you just started dating to be sure everything is clear and okay? Does men's sexual health depend on women? Because this conversation tends to center on prevention when it comes to sex with women. We had this question earlier. So now let's go to Dr. Maureen. Dr. Maureen, let's have you jump on these questions while we, move it across all the other participants. Dr. Maureen, are you still with us?
Oh, yes, I'm still here. My video is not working.
So let's hear your thoughts on these questions we have.
Okay, please, could you also post the question? But before then, the question is talking about how to involve male doctors in men's sexual health.
Yes, because
I would like to reframe that question as in, how are we going to get not only male doctors, but female doctors, most importantly, stakeholders and government in men's health? Because, after the Beijing conference, the policies tend to shift towards women and under 5. And if you notice, most of the other policies, UNDP policies, and other international policies, we are moving more to women. So instead of talking about getting male doctors to talk, it should be in a holistic manner that we in health should turn our torchlight towards men. In area of health awareness, which both male and female doctors can do, in areas of open communication and able to voice out their needs. The earlier questions talked about how couple should be able to assess their health needs. I would like to throw in some more comments there while answering this. Doctors here should also educate men and the couple to have an open communications about themselves. If we're able to touch the area of open communication between a husband and wife, between partners, that will lead them to seek for sexual health together in the hospital. It will lead to having health checks. It will lead to discussing about their family. It will lead to discussing about family planning. And also, doctors are the person asking questions should also endeavor to discuss with their men. You know, men tend to feel free with their co-men. So to discuss with them about the reproductive health. But the stakeholders, the Nigerian government, to also put measures that will allow us to bring the issue of men's health to the table and discuss about them. And before I conclude, one question I just remembered is the question on testosterone. I'm not a urologist, but because that we work together with them, and we talk as a gynecologist, but is a urologist, and also, like Kingsley said, that we fine-tune it. The issue of using testosterone, please, testosterone is not encouraged among the younger men. Because, you know, if you remember the hypothalamus pituitary, if it's in a woman, we say ovarian. But is a man, we are talking of spermatogenesis. This track, you see where testosterone will come up on the high center. So if you introduce external testosterone, it will suppress the endogenous, that the one the body is producing, thereby affecting the young man negatively. Because if you introduce an external testosterone, it will alter the normal axis of endogenous production of testosterone, and it will suppress this endogenous route. It will negatively affect the normal endogenous production of testosterone. So external testosterone will give you a transient effect, but will adversely affect this axis I just described. Now, for our older men, you know, for them, the testosterone is already being on the lower side of it. The production and the axis is already reduced. That's even at that stage you think of addition of testosterone. What I'm mentioning this is because of our younger men, please, it will culminate to suppression of the endogenous testosterone. That's the few I can say about it from gynecological point of view, while I also conclude on the question you asked me. So male doctors, not only male I mentioned, we need to involve our men in this reproductive health issues, and also put policies. Like I interviewed the men that came for free PSA. I asked them, I saw many of you came. They said, yes, that PSA testing is too expensive and they cannot afford it, that they want to key into this opportunity that we open for them to screen. Not every man will have this. Maybe like in my center is 20,000, some center 25, 30 or more. Some may not be able to afford it. So we need to look into those areas if we want to get it right with men, because those men will one way or the other affect us women. Yes, the male doctors can do more, but all of us, we're supposed to join hands together for a healthier man, for a better reproductive route. And when the man is also healthy, it will support a woman, not only in preventing infection, but in other reproductive health care of that woman. The man is well informed, is well engaged, is aware of reproductive health, and there is a good mental status of that man. It will to better health outcome for our women. So I feel it's a holistic kind of work, not only for male doctors. Thank you, and over. What happened?
You are muted, Lillian.
Uh-oh. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. K, for that. Thank you, Dr. Maureen. You know, you brought us into the aspect where we're trying to shine the light on shared responsibility and how we could actually be made a holistic approach. But before we go into this conclusion, as we're wrapping down, let's have Dr. K. Somebody asked a question about key testing that couples have to do before they get married. Can you throw a bit more light on that? Especially someone said even before wanting to get to know your partner physically and, you know, intimately, what are those key testing you need to do as a man and also together with your partner? So we'll have Dr. K throw more light on that, and then we'll, you know, start winding down. The conversation is very interesting, but, you know, we have to save some for another day. So let's over to you, Dr. K.
So thanks, Lillian. For me, I will want to approach this from a disclosure point, from a point where that's from a sexual history disclosure, in all honesty and between the two partners. Usually what happens is sexual histories are not disclosed until when asked. It's a common thing, you know, and it's sometimes often too late because intimacy had already advanced, if you know what I mean. So full, honest disclosure of sexual history between partners before intimacy is very, very important. It will save a lot of, it helps a lot. As a clinician running reproductive health clinics and stuff, I know a lot has happened that if only there was full and honest disclosure, as much as one can between the two, is very, not just one partner asking the other. So disclosure of sexual history before intimacy helps a lot because diseases are transmitted left, right, and center, and you will now be managing a more complex, the management gets complex if intimacy had gone a long way. Now, generally, with a full and honest disclosure and also understanding the place of sexual health in one's life actually now makes them to approach a clinician to have them talk about their sexual and reproductive health. And it will now guide towards what investigations that need to be done. There was a question somebody posed that, what investigations do I need to do to be sure that this person is clean or has a clean bill? The problem is people are looking at the other, when one partner is looking at the other person, is not actually looking at himself. There is this adage in my place that says you point one finger to someone, not minding the four that is pointing at you. It's not about that person, it's about the two of you. So the first, I would like them to first of all build a relationship with a clinician at a service delivery point of their choice. That relationship is very important because it will guide what investigations that need to be done. There are routinely in public health, there are investigations that we consider as routine screening. Before the age of so, you should have done HPV screening, you should have done done all the routine screenings that, you know, STI screenings are all over the place, okay? And these are available. Every young and sexually active young person should be able to have done STI screening at a point in their life, depending on when they want to. It's not only when there are symptoms. At times, it's often too late before that has happened. So there is no, I will not be prescribing specific investigations that will form a clean slate, a clean slate, but I'll be telling that I will be advising or recommending that you build a relationship around a clinician in a facility, or you just go for STI screening. But the most important part is the conversation that with the clinician that will help to recommend the investigations that will form priority for such individuals. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. K, for this detailed, and we hope the men who are listening in have been able to pick something from this conversation this morning. But before we go, let's take a few takeaways from all our panelists. How do we make sexual and reproductive health a shared responsibility, something that the men should be involved in, something that women should be involved in, something that the community should champion? So I'll kick off with AKT and then Elizabeth, Dr. Maureen, and Dr. K. Let's just have very brief, we're out of time, so let's just make it very brief. Final words to our listeners. Let's have AKT go. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. So I just want to say that communication is an intervention, a tool of intervention in healthcare, and that we should look more towards how society communicates this information to men and to women as well. And if our communication is not bridging the gap, if our communication is risky, right, is advocating for risky behavior, we need to change that communication, because at the end of the day, people will always believe cultural narratives over any medical advice. If you tell a pregnant woman that she needs to come to the hospital to get checked, she'll tell you that she's heard several stories in her village where if a pregnant woman puts a safety pin in her hair, that it would ward off evil eyes. And so she's safe and doesn't need antenatal. If you tell a nursing mother that hiccups are not something to worry about, or you don't necessarily have to give your child water when they have a hiccup, she'll tell you that she's heard several stories growing up from her mother and in the village that if you put a thread from a fabric on the baby's head, the baby will stop hiccuping. In the same way, if we tell men stories like, oh, enjoyment of life comes when you drink this several number of bottles of alcohol and you can hold your alcohol. The sign of wealth comes from having a big tummy, which is a consequence of too much drinking. And when we tell men that your identity and your power and whatever you stand for is directly tied to your penis and your testicles, they will believe those narratives over medical advice. So for us to get men to participate and for women to participate as well, so that men can have better health care and better approach to healthcare, we need to change the narratives. We need to change the stories. We need to engage the media to put forth stories that bridge the gap that we have.
Thank you so much, AKT, for that. We realize that information and communication is very important when it comes to putting out the right, changing the norm and changing the narrative. All right, Elizabeth, over to you. How can we make this a shared responsibility?
Okay, so I would like to say that sexual and reproductive health is not just a men's issue or a woman's issue, right? It's not something that we have to separate, like this is for men, this is for women. It's a shared responsibility. We all have to put all hands on deck. Social media is a very powerful tool, like I always say, and I'm really happy that MSI is doing something like this, because we need to have more conversations like this. I think more conversations like this should happen. People should have spaces where they can ask questions. I think we need to create safe spaces for men to ask questions where, they don't feel like asking questions is a form of weakness. We need to create safe spaces for men. We need I believe in catch them young, start sexuality education very early, before young boys are exposed to harmful norms. We need more male, like I said before, we need more male role models. We need to change what responsible masculinity looks like. We need to encourage regular STI testing. We need to encourage condom use. We need to encourage shared responsibility when it comes to contraception and pregnancy prevention. So that's what I just want to say, that it is not, it's not a man's issue, it's not a woman's issue, it's a shared responsibility. And, that's just what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Over to you, Dr. K.
So I want to toe the line of what Elizabeth just spoke about. I was just thinking through all what we've been discussing about an hour ago, and I feel that there is a need to begin to to normalize conversations, difficult conversations, creating safe spaces. You know, it will help. You may never know who is listening, and you never know what someone is going through. You will reach out to more people. This kind of meetings, this kind of conversations is very, very key, and is very, very important. Talking to peers, you know, helping to address taboos, you know, responsible sexual practices, and indirectly helping to address some cultural masculine norms that are harmful to the overall sexuality of a man. So yeah, that would be my way of wrap up. Over.
Thank you. Dr. Maureen, let's have your final take on the conversation.
Okay, thanks so much. You know, as being the last, is like closing up and everything. First, I would like to thank MSI for bringing this all-important topic. You know, mostly in health, we talk about men, but you were able to bring up a very rare area, men's health. So I would like to thank you in a special way, and I suggest we continue like that, both individually, health, stakeholders, governments, that we need to bring men's health to the forefront. If we're able to achieve it, it will do a lot, because there is a direct connection between men's health and women. As Elizabeth said, it's a shared responsibility, and other speakers concord. It's a shared responsibility. We want to get it right in the area of reduction of maternal mortality, unsafe abortion, high rates of infertility, high rates of pelvic inflammatory diseases. We must bring men on board. And evidence has shown that when they are involved, you will have high uptake in family planning, good use of contraceptives, well planning of a family and child spacing, reduction of safe abortion, maternal mortality, and other adverse pregnancy complications. So it's very important for us to take it as the last word, as other speakers have all said, that reproductive health is a shared responsibility, and we want to get it right. We must look into men's health. And finally, I'm calling on government to also look into that direction. And that will get a long way to help us to improve reproductive health status of not only our men, but also for our women. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maureen. And, you know, it's obvious that the key takeaway from this conversation is encouraging men to speak up, creating safe spaces for men, and, you know, having a shared responsibility, making sure that men's health is being spoken about a lot more, raising awareness, catching them young, educating them young, which is very crucial, and also the involvement of the entire community when it comes to raising boys. That is why at MSI Nigeria, we have our contact center where we create safe space to the men out there who are joining us across all our social media platforms. Find time to talk about your health, get your regular health checks. You know, you could reach out to our contact center on 22252, and we have that very safe space for these conversations you want to have. Even if you want to speak to a man, there'll be a man there to listen to you particularly and hear from you. So we're going to, you know, we have that safe space. We also have our packages and our STI packages, our couple screening packages that does exist for men, for STI testing and packages. But from my end, I would say thank you very much to everybody, while I hand over to my co-host, Chibike, to give his final words and sign us out for the day.
Thank you very much, Lillian. Thank you very much to all the panelists that we've had here. It's been quite an interesting conversation to the point that we would have loved it to linger. We could see a couple of questions, a couple of people who also want to ask questions and all that. But the conversation doesn't end here. Let's also continue online and all on our various platforms. Well, we have heard it, and then Lillian has also summarized it. The key takeaway is that there's an interconnection between the men's health and the health of the family. The same way that there's an interconnection between the sexual and reproductive health of the men with that of the family and that of the women around them. Therefore, the calls for a concerted effort in terms of paying attention. Let's be our brothers' keeper, our sisters' keeper, and do the right thing. So from all of us at MSI Nigeria, we say a word is enough for the wise. I will believe that there's one thing that you have taken away from this conversation that will change your behavior in terms of taking the right steps to better your sexual and reproductive health as a man, and by extension, as everyone who has joined us in this conversation. Thank you very much. And from my end, I'm Chibuike Otaka, and we are going to meet again on another edition of the MSI Nigeria Chat Series, where we'll have a very wonderful conversation again to have with you. Thank you, and over to you, Lillian.
All right, thank you very much, Chibuike, for that lovely sign off. So all our listeners across all our social media platforms, keep the energy up, because we're definitely coming back with more intentional and interesting conversations. To all our panelists, thank you so much for creating out this 1 hour on your busy schedule, and we'll see you again next time. Do have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. Goodbye.